His first love was going to an Ivy League university, and my husband Ryan, who had just gotten married but hadn't yet held a wedding ceremony, took all our savings and left to accompany her to school, leaving me with a newborn baby girl. 20 years have passed in the blink of an eye. The child I raised with great difficulty and sacrifice has become a highly sought-after game developer. The independent game she developed was acquired by Ace Technology for a hefty sum. At the victory banquet, Ryan returned to the country with his first love and made a grand entrance. That pitiful White Lotus thanked me graciously in front of all the media. "Kara, you've really worked hard to raise my daughter so well." Ryan immediately proposed divorce, asking me to let him and his family of 3 be together. I watched them singing in unison and smiled. Good. They don't know that I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Mom. It's done. Ace Technology signed. $300 million, paid in full. On the other end of the phone, her daughter Lily's voice was filled with uncontrollable excitement, accompanied by the deafening cheers and applause from the press conference. I was standing in the stairwell of our old apartment building, carrying vegetables I had just bought at the market. The cement walls were badly peeling. I leaned against the wall, listening to the commotion on the phone, as if I were in 2 different worlds. A warm feeling of satisfaction spread through my body, and I smiled and said, "Lily, you're amazing. Mom is so proud of you." 20 years ago, I was also innocent and carefree, full of expectations for the future. Ryan and I grew up together, from school uniforms to wedding dresses, and were considered by everyone to be Romeo and Juliet. Just as I had obtained my marriage certificate with him and was joyfully preparing for our dream wedding, his first love, Holly, the woman who had left without a word years ago, suddenly returned. She said she had received an offer from an Ivy League university but lacked the funds to attend. Ryan took my hand and painted a picture that was incredibly tempting. He asked me to take out all the savings we had set aside for our wedding and even persuaded me to take out a personal loan from the bank to invest in what he called a high-return project. He said, "Kara, trust me. Once this project is successful, I'll throw you the biggest wedding in the city." I believed him. In the end, he turned around and used the money that had drained me dry and left me with a huge debt to pave the way for Holly to achieve her dreams, and the 2 of them flew away together. A month after he left, I received an anonymous package containing a newborn baby girl and a cold note. "Kara is my daughter with Holly. We're not in a position to take her right now, so you take care of her for now. We've been married, so don't let me down." At that moment, my world collapsed. I went from being an enviable bride-to-be to a woman abandoned by her husband, left to raise an illegitimate daughter and burdened with enormous debts. Back then, to pay off debts and raise Lily, I endured every hardship imaginable. I worked in a factory during the day, sold goods at a night market in the evenings, and took on odd jobs on weekends. At the busiest times, I worked 4 jobs in a single day, so exhausted that I could barely stand up straight. I didn't cry or make a fuss. I silently raised my enemy's daughter, which drove all my relatives and friends crazy. My parents scolded me for being useless and hated me for not living up to their expectations. In the end, they published a notice in the newspaper severing our mother-daughter relationship. My best friend Nora pointed at me and accused me of being overly compassionate, which upset me so much that she stopped talking to me for several years. I looked at Lily's confident and composed photo on the press conference stage on my phone and felt that all the hardships of the past 20 years had turned into sweetness in that moment. Half an hour after hanging up the phone, my daughter rushed into the old, dilapidated rental house we were living in. She was panting, her cheeks flushed with excitement, clutching a black gold-plated card tightly in her hand. "Mom. Look what I brought you." She looked like a child presenting a treasure, eagerly handing me the card. A duplex mansion on the top floor of Yunding Tian-K. For my beloved mother. I looked at the access card representing the most expensive area in the city, where the housing prices were astronomical, beyond my wildest dreams. I instinctively wanted to refuse. But my daughter firmly held my hand, her eyes red. "Mom, what's yours is mine. We're not separate. She rubbed my hands, which had become rough and calloused from years of physical labor. Her hands were large and bony, no longer delicate as they once were. I used to have delicate hands that played the piano and painted watercolors. When I was little, you always played Moonlight Sonata for me, but later, in order to pay for my programming class, you sold the old piano your grandmother left you. Her tears finally fell, dropping onto the back of my hand, hot and stinging. I've reserved the best concert-quality piano in the world for you in our new home, Mom. Will you play it for me again? I happily hugged my daughter, feeling peaceful and tender. That evening, I took a photo of the door card and posted it on Facebook along with an official photo of the apartment. After all the hardship, my Lily bought me a retirement home. This Facebook post was like a deep water bomb, instantly bringing all the old friends who had been lurking to the surface. The comments section exploded. Yending Tianke, a top-tier luxury residence. Kara, are you planning to become a wealthy socialite? Lily, you're so talented. You're my goddaughter after all. Kara, you finally made it. The first to reply was her best friend Nora. There were also some sour comments from relatives back then. Hey, has she struck it rich? If Ryan knew that his daughter had become a billionaire, would he rush back from abroad overnight? I smiled meaningfully and slowly replied to the comment. Tomorrow night, my daughter and I will be hosting a housewarming party at our new home. All of our friends and family are welcome to come and visit. Below, Nora immediately replied, I must be there. I'll bring you a 1982 Lafite. I looked at the moonlight outside the window and really looked forward to tomorrow night's banquet. The penthouse duplex apartment at the top of Yending Tianke offers breathtaking views. The huge floor-to-ceiling windows look out onto the dazzling night view of the entire city. My daughter and I didn't invite many friends. They were all old friends from my youth who had drifted apart from me because of Ryan, but they had never said anything harsh to me. As soon as Nora walked in, she gave me a big hug, her eyes red and teary. Kara, you finally made it. Remember when we all tried to talk you out of it, but you wouldn't listen? Now it looks like we were the ones with the tunnel vision. I smiled and said, stop talking about that. Today is a happy day. Everyone looked at Lily, who had grown up to be so graceful and elegant, and felt deeply moved, praising her for her success. Just as the atmosphere in the living room was at its most lively, the apartment's heavy door, which required a password and fingerprint to open, was suddenly pushed open from the outside. My husband Ryan, whom I hadn't seen in 20 years, walked in leisurely, dressed in a well-tailored designer suit, his hair neatly combed, arm in arm with Holly, my first love, who was still as pure and charming as ever, as if time had never left a trace on her face. Their appearance was like a bucket of ice water, instantly dousing the room's festive atmosphere. Everyone's gaze, filled with either surprise or anger, focused on the uninvited guests. Ryan seemed oblivious to the hostility of those around him. He surveyed the luxurious apartment with a scrutinizing gaze, a hint of satisfaction flickering in his eyes, before nodding his head. Not bad, the location of the house is good, and the decoration is okay. He acted as if he owned the place. Holly immediately spotted Lily surrounded by a crowd. She quickly let go of Ryan's arm, her beautiful eyes filling with tears as she rushed over, looking pitiful. Lily, my daughter. Mom finally sees you. She wanted to hug Lily, but Lily subconsciously turned away. Lily looked at this unfamiliar beautiful woman in front of her, then looked at me, her eyes full of caution and confusion. Auntie, who are you? Holly missed her target, and her expression instantly turned incredibly hurt. She turned and threw herself into Ryan's arms, her shoulders trembling slightly as she cried, her tears falling like raindrops. Ryan, she doesn't recognize me, she called me auntie. Ryan gently patted her back, comforting her with silent tenderness, then looked up at me with a reproachful, uncompromising gaze. Kara, hurry up and tell Lily that this is her real mother. His bossy tone made it sound like I was born to obey his orders, as if the past 20 years had never existed. Nora exploded on the spot. She slammed her wine glass down on the table, stood up, and shouted, Ryan, have you no shame? You ignored them for 20 years, and now you have the nerve to come back and claim kinship? What kind of person are you? Ryan gave Nora a cold glance, the corners of his mouth curling into a sneer. This is our family business. Who are you, an outsider, to butt in? Kara didn't say a word, so why are you getting so worked up? He immediately ignored Nora, who was shaking with anger, and turned to Lily, trying to force what he thought was his kindest, gentlest smile. Lily, my dear daughter, your father knows that you must have suffered a lot over the years. It's all because of that woman. She is narrow-minded and deliberately prevented us from recognizing each other, just to make you hate us and drive a wedge between us. Holly followed suit, wiping away tears as she peeked out from Ryan's embrace. Her voice was soft but clear enough for everyone to hear. Yes, Lily. Back then, your father and I were forced apart. We had no choice in the matter. We think of you every day abroad and pray for you every night. I also make sure to send your mother child support every month, afraid that she will treat you badly. I never imagined that she would hide all the money and make you suffer with her. She spoke with tears in her eyes, her words cutting deep, as if she were the one who had been wronged the most and suffered the greatest injustice. Lily's brows furrowed tightly. She looked at Holly, then at me, as if trying to discern something. I remained silent, calmly watching their intense performance, even feeling a bit amused. Seeing Lily's wavering gaze, Ryan thought the time was right and the timing was perfect. He cleared his throat, turned to me, and said in a condescending tone, Kara, I know you hate me, but it's been 20 years. It's time to let go of your resentment. Now that Lily has made something of herself, it's time for our family to reunite. He paused, as if making a big decision, took a document out of his briefcase, and threw it in front of me with a soft thud. This is the divorce agreement. I have already signed it. You will leave with nothing, and I will not hold anything against you. Considering how well you have taken care of Lily, I will give you the house as compensation for your hard work over the years. He looked down at me condescendingly, his tone tinged with impatience. Sign it. Don't make a scene. Don't put your daughter in the middle and make things difficult for her. I glanced down at the agreement. The 4 words, divorce with no assets, were printed in bold, glaring, and ridiculous. In our marriage, apart from this newly purchased house registered under my name, what other assets does Ryan have? What's the matter? Are you unwilling? Seeing that I was hesitating to sign, Ryan's expression darkened. Kara, don't be ungrateful. Don't forget that legally, I'm still Lily's father, and I deserve half of all her achievements. His tone was full of greed and threats. I'll ask you just one thing. I finally looked up and met his self-righteous gaze. If Lily weren't here today, if you hadn't seen the news about her company being acquired, would you have come back? Ryan's eyes flickered, and he denied it vehemently. Of course not. Can blood ties be measured by money? I've wanted to come back for a long time, but I just never had the right opportunity. He spoke so eloquently, as if he were a man of great loyalty and integrity. I laughed, laughing so hard that tears nearly came to my eyes. All right, I'll divorce him. I picked up the pen on the table, no longer hesitating, and signed my name on the divorce agreement with decisive strokes. Kara felt a sense of liberation she had never experienced before. Ryan and Holly immediately wore smug, unashamed smiles of triumph. My daughter looked at me in shock, her eyes red with hurt. Mom. How could you sign that? Don't you want me anymore? I took my daughter's hand and patted it gently, signaling her to calm down. Then I looked at Ryan, pushed the signed divorce agreement toward him, and said calmly, now that we're divorced, we should settle our accounts. Ryan didn't expect me to be so straightforward. Looking at the signed agreement in front of him, the smug expression on his face grew even broader. He picked up the agreement, as if he had obtained some rare treasure. He completely ignored what I said and laughed contemptuously. Settle accounts? What accounts? Didn't I already tell you that this house worth over 100 million is compensation for you? What more do you want? Kara, you can't be too greedy in life. He looked wary, afraid that I would pounce on him in the next second and roll around, demanding an extra penny from him. I ignored his mockery and turned to the bookcase on the side of the living room. There was a row of seemingly ordinary decorative books. I pulled out a thick Bible and took a thick ledger with a combination lock from the hollowed-out pages. With a click, the combination lock opened. I took the account book and slammed it down in front of Ryan. He was startled by the sound and frowned in displeasure. In 20 years, you have sent me 3 so-called child support payments. The first was when Lily was 3 years old and was hospitalized with a high fever. I was desperate and called you, but you thought I was bothering you, so you had someone send $50 from abroad. The second time was when Lily started elementary school. Your mother sent 50 yuan through someone, saying it was pocket money for her granddaughter. The third time, I took the initiative to find your contact information and asked you for Lily's interest class tuition. You scolded me for being unrealistic and sent me $50 to shut me up. In total, $150. I flipped open the first page of the ledger. There, every expense, every debt, every humiliation was recorded in different colors, etched into my memory with crystal clarity. In contrast, during our marriage, I incurred bank debts totaling 3,275,400 yuan due to your initial investment. I paid off this debt in full 3 years ago. As my fingertips traced those dense numbers, every single character was engraved with blood and tears. In addition, over the years, I had been solely responsible for Lily's living expenses, from formula and diapers to private school tuition, as well as all of her startup capital when she first started her business. There are also her medical expenses and the cost of her extracurricular activities. I raised my eyes and watched his expression gradually turn ugly. I smiled slightly. I'll give you a discount. Let's say 5 million for all of this. That comes to a total of $827,550. I closed the account book and looked at him indifferently. I'll round it down for you. Just give me 8 million. Ryan's face turned red in an instant, then black. Kara. Are you crazy? I don't have that kind of money to give you. He looked like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, his voice sharp and piercing. Holly was like a stick of dynamite that had been lit, screaming, "Why don't you just go rob someone? It doesn't cost that much to raise a child. Your account book is fake. You're clearly extorting me." I sneered, my eyes filled with contempt. Extortion? I haven't even counted the loss of my youth and mental anguish over the past 20 years. Ryan, when you used sweet talk to take all the savings we had set aside for our wedding and left me with debts I can never repay, did you ever think this day would come? You're slandering me. Ryan pointed at me angrily and shouted, the investment back then was a normal business transaction. The market has risks, and if you lost money, it's just your bad luck. Really? I knew he would say that. I pulled out another piece of paper from between the pages of the account book. It was carefully preserved in a plastic sleeve and had turned yellow with age. It was the IOU he had written by hand back then to get me to take out a loan. I, Ryan, hereby borrow $50,000 from my wife, Kara, for overseas project investment, and promise to repay the principal and interest within 1 year. In the event of default, I will bear all legal consequences. I read out the contents word for word, then placed the IOU in front of him. It was written in black and white. Should I call the police right now and let them decide whether this was a business investment or marital fraud? Ryan's face turned pale in an instant, his lips trembling, unable to utter a word. He looked at me, his eyes filled with disbelief. He probably never imagined that the girl who had once been so docile and obedient to him, who would never disobey him, would hide such a secret and endure it for 20 years. Mom, don't waste your breath on them. Lily, who had been silently observing everything, suddenly spoke up, her voice cold and firm. She walked over to me, wrapped her arm around mine intimately, and shot Ryan and Holly a cold stare that was like 2 sharp knives. We don't want the money. Ryan and Holly's eyes lit up, thinking that things had taken a turn for the better. But Lily's next words sent them plummeting back into despair. Ace Technologies' chief legal team will speak with you both personally. I owe my mother every penny. Also. Lily paused, took out her phone, and dialed a number in front of everyone. Is this Mr. Zhang? I've entrusted you with a matter, and I'd like to get started. She hung up the phone, her gaze sharp as a knife, sweeping over the pale faces of the adulterous couple. I, Lily, hereby permanently renounce any obligation to support Mr. Ryan and Ms. Holly. At the same time, I will formally sue them to recover all financial and emotional damages caused to my mother, Ms. Kara. This includes, but is not limited to, debts, child support, and all the suffering she has endured over the past 20 years because of you. Her words were loud and clear, each one hitting Ryan and Holly like a hammer. Ryan was completely panicked. He pointed at Lily, shaking with rage, his voice changing. I'm your biological father. How could you do this to me? You're going to report me? Biological father? Lily laughed coldly, her laughter filled with endless mockery and icy hatred. A man who has never fulfilled his responsibilities as a father since the day I was born, does he even deserve to be called a father? On my household registration, the column for father is forever blank. Seeing this, Holly quickly squeezed out a few more tears and tried the same trick again, playing the emotional card. Lily, how can you say that about your father? We have our reasons. We love you. Shut up. Lily interrupted her abruptly. Your hardships are stealing the money my mother saved for her wedding to live a carefree life abroad? Your hardships are treating me like an unwanted ball and throwing me to my mother, not asking about me for 20 years? Her voice grew louder and louder, and her emotions became more and more agitated. Her eyes were filled with stubborn tears. I'm telling you, I only have one mother, and her name is Kara. Now, get out of my house, right now. Lily pointed at the front door and told them to leave without mercy. Ryan and Holly were stunned by Lily's unprecedented decisiveness and powerful aura, and were speechless for a moment. They exchanged a sheepish glance, then fled the mansion they had long coveted, looking as disheveled as two rats caught in a trap, under the scornful stares of the guests filling the room. The farce finally came to an end. The room returned to calm, and Nora and her friends rushed over to comfort Lily and me. I looked at my daughter's shoulders trembling slightly with anger, and my heart was filled with mixed emotions. Lily, whom I raised, has truly grown up. She is no longer the little girl who needed me to protect her. She has grown into someone who can protect me, someone who is as strong as armor. In the days that followed, Ryan and Holly completely disappeared. According to Nora, Ace Technologies' legal department was extremely efficient, handling international lawsuits quickly and decisively. Not only did they freeze all of their overseas bank accounts and real estate, but they also filed a lawsuit in international court. The money they swindled back then has now grown into an astronomical sum under compound interest and inflation, an amount so large that they would have to sell everything they own and spend their entire lives working to repay it. I thought this matter would gradually fade out of my life, allowing my daughter and me to start a new, peaceful life. But I never expected that a month later, I would receive an unexpected phone call. It was Ryan's mother, my former mother-in-law who hadn't contacted me in 20 years. On the other end of the line, her voice was old and weary, no longer the arrogant tone she had used when she forced me to sell our marital home to pay off her son's gambling debts. Kara, it's me. Is something wrong? My tone was flat, betraying no emotion. Kara, I know we've wronged you. But Ryan, he's dying. The doctor said he has a terminal illness and doesn't have much time left. I was startled, but then I was overwhelmed by an even deeper sense of absurdity. I replied indifferently, we're divorced. What he does is none of my business. Kara. Please. She's crying inconsolably over there. He is Lily's biological father, after all. A child can't grow up without a father. For the sake of the child, please come and see him one last time. He wants to see you. I remained silent for a long time, but finally agreed. Not for any other reason, but to put a definitive end to this utterly ridiculous past. I didn't tell Lily. Alone, I followed the address and found a private clinic hidden deep in the urban village. It looked extremely unsanitary. The strong smell of disinfectant mixed with mold made it hard to breathe. Ryan lay on the darkest bed in the innermost room, his face gaunt, his eyes sunken, and his body so thin that he was little more than skin and bones. There was not a trace of the former vigor and vitality he once possessed. When he saw me, a faint glimmer of light flickered in his cloudy eyes. "Kara, you came." His voice was weak, as if it could break at any moment. Holly wasn't there, only his mother was by his side. I stood by the bed, looking at the man who had ruined the first half of my life, my heart as calm as a still pond. "You called me here. What do you want?" He gasped for breath and fumbled under his pillow for a crumpled document, which he handed to me with all his strength. "This is the signed property transfer agreement. Everything in my name is now Lily's." I didn't answer. "I'll take my things back myself, no need for you to pretend to be kind." He gave a wry smile, and tears welled up in his bloodshot eyes, trickling down his sunken cheeks. "Kara, I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong," he said haltingly, as if confessing his sins or begging for forgiveness. "I shouldn't have been so foolish to believe Holly. She's a liar. She took the money and ran, leaving me here to die. If there is a next life, Kara, I will treat you well." I listened quietly until he finished his last sentence. The ward fell into a deathly silence, and I slowly and clearly spoke up. "Ryan, have you ever thought that Lily is not your daughter at all?" The ward fell into complete silence. Ryan's eyes widened as if he had heard something unbelievable. He struggled to sit up but fell back helplessly, staring at me with unfocused eyes. His mother also froze in place, her face filled with disbelief. I ignored their reactions, took my phone out of my bag, and played a recording that I had saved for 20 years. That was 20 years ago, when I accidentally recorded it at the hospital. At the time, I just thought the doctor's tone was a bit strange, so I instinctively pressed the record button. "Ryan, are you sure you want to implant Miss Holly's fertilized egg into Miss Kara's body? Ethically speaking, this is decided. Stop talking nonsense and get on with it. You'll get your money." In the recording, Ryan's voice was cold, selfish, and tinged with impatience. Next is another recording of me begging another conscientious doctor. "Doctor, please, I know this is difficult for you. But please, help me implant one of my own. I beg you." When I first discovered the truth, I was devastated and even considered ending my life. Fortunately, my older brother, who was studying abroad, contacted me in time. After hearing about my ordeal, he was furious. With his help and coordination, I found a private clinic willing to keep my secret and had 2 embryos implanted. One is their ill-fated relationship. The other is my last hope. Ryan's plan was doomed from the start. Ryan pointed at me, shaking with rage, unable to catch his breath. His whole body began to convulse, and he couldn't make a sound. "So, the daughter I raised is my biological daughter." I calmly revealed this secret I had kept hidden for 20 years, then gently placed the paternity test report I had prepared long ago on his bedside table. "As for the child you had with Holly, she was born with a congenital heart condition and had to take medication every day. At the time, I was heavily in debt and couldn't even support myself, let alone afford her treatment. So, as soon as she was born, I sent her to an orphanage. Whether she lived or died, I have no idea." Ryan's eyes were fixed on the conclusion of the DNA test report stating that there was no blood relationship. His cloudy pupils contracted violently at that moment, then gradually dilated, losing all their luster. He muttered something under his breath, as if it were karma, or as if he had said nothing at all. Finally, his head tilted to one side, and he fell completely silent. His mother let out a shrill scream and threw herself on top of him. I didn't look back at them once, turning and walking out of the suffocating hospital room. The sunlight outside was so bright it hurt my eyes. I took a long, deep breath and felt the huge weight that had been pressing down on my heart for 20 years finally lift. In the sky, a falcon flaps its wings and flies freely. My brand new life has just begun.